Hello and welcome to the Axcess Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Masana. We're filming live tonight from Long Island Fieldhouse in Hop Park, New York, joined by two very special guests. I have James Sill to my left, the reigning Diamond Award winner. And to my right is Coach Tom Tuttle of Division High School. So let's start off with the obvious. James, congratulations. You won the Diamond Award. I mean, this has been the culmination of a lot of hard work. So now that you've had a little bit of time to think about it, what's been what's like your lasting impression of the 2023 season?
I think it's awesome. It was a personal goal for me after last year. Really wanted to do it, put in the work, and got it done. So it's really cool to look back.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach, you guys been fortunate to have a lot of great players in the program, and James is just the latest in a long line. You know, you had not too long. You only have to go back 2 years to go back to Nick Roselli's his historic season. So can you tell our audience a little bit from your vantage point what the maturation process has been like for James?
Well, James, it's funny, we were talking about before we went on air, that James came to us as a sophomore, and he'll be the first one to tell you this. He wasn't in great shape. He had great size. Guys I would talk to would tell me about his size, really good bat speed. But the two things he needed to get better at was his weight. He needed to lose some weight, and he needed to get stronger. Mm-hmm. And we drilled that into his head when he got back to us as a sophomore. And I was telling you earlier, I think that one of the things that kind of shocked him was how much we practice and how much we work at, being successful at Division. And I think that was a little bit of shell shock to him. And then after his initial year as a sophomore, it started to click to him, say, listen, you know what, let me try to lose some little weight, and let me try to get strong in a weight room. And I think it really clicked with him going into his junior year. Mm. Kind of changed his body from his sophomore year to his junior year, but then he really made the next step up to the next level. There's 10%, there's 10% of athletes that want to be elite and work at an elite level, and then there's the 80% that just think they're working hard, but they're only working like an average level, and then there's below a 10% that does nothing. It never gets better. And I think James fell into that 80%. And then when he got to us and he started to understand, well, listen, I don't want to waste my talent. Let me try to work at the 10% elite level. Once he started doing that, this is what happens. You become a Diamond Award winner. Mm-hmm. You lead your team to a county championship. And he was one of the best players on Long Island this year by far. Yeah,
and he did it two ways. You could have put him up as a position player or a pitcher. So can you tell our audience a little bit about what that? How does that work? If you have a player that has those caliber of numbers, how do they determine whether he's going to be up for pitcher or the position player award?
Well, I'd be doing him an injustice if I didn't put him up for both, because I'll be honest with you, he kind of should have won both.
Yeah.
He could have won both. His offensive numbers were ridiculous.
That's never happened, though,
He
right?
batted I don't have all the stats with me, but off the top of my head, he batted in mid-fives, upper fives, like 570 something. He had 38 RBIs. No, I think he had almost 40 RBIs, 37 runs scored. He had 8 home runs, and all legit home runs. Most of his home runs were majestic shots.
A lot of right center shots.
He hit a ball, dead center Division, which was 425. It landed on the track, and then he hit a ball against Valley Street North. They hit the second wall of a roof. So he's got major league power. But the thing about James was that, again, in credit to him, he kind of changed his approach and his hitting style, because his junior year he was good, but he wasn't great, and he wasn't reaching his potential. But once he changed his approach and he started understanding his swing and what works for him, that's when he took his offensive game to another level.
Mm-hmm. So let's peel back behind the curtain a little bit. We saw, the end result is that you made all these improvements and it all came to fruition. But what did you do behind the scenes? Who were some people that helped you along the way, have that amount of success?
The guys at Long Island Elite, always been there for me. Coach Rob Severies, Coach Greg Thompson, Greg Downing. Parents always been there for me. Working out wise, kind of did it on my own. Help Division, of course. Get in the weight room in June. You're gonna good things will happen. So
yeah, that's a type of commitment that not a lot of schools have. Most of the time, it's like, we'll see you after the winter sports season. But you guys don't really have an off season, it seems like, in Levittown, really. And actually, that's a question, Coach. You've seen it. You've been a part of the culture now for 3 decades, right? You've been on coaching staff since 1997. What is it about Levittown that just seems to generate great baseball players?
Well, first of all, you got a community that backs it. There's a community there that really, especially in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, the community, they invest in baseball. There's a nucleus in central Nassau area where it's kind of a baseball town. East Meadow's very good in baseball with East Meadow and Clark. You got Allen Trees, you got MacArthur. So there's a pocket there. We're just proud of the fact that we've been so successful for so long and won so many championships, because you need to have great players. Yeah. But you got to have players that buy into your program. And if you don't have players that buy into your program, then obviously you're going to have some low, years where you're not so great.
Yeah.
We've been lucky enough at Division to have great players that buy into our program, where we've kind of been on a level that we sustained.
Yeah, and that's not a hyperbole. Yeah, you guys made the playoffs every year since 1974, which is just unheard of. I think the next longest streak, if I'm not mistaken, was Shoreham, who dated back to 1985, but that streak unfortunately ended this year, whereas you guys won another county championship. So.
Yeah, and I think that we won 15 county championships, but I think we've lost about 20 something. So we played in almost 40 county finals.
That's a lot of wins.
But doing the Class A's in Nassau County is really hard to do. So many good teams, so many good coaches, and you just gotta you gotta be lucky.
Yep.
Baseball's a sport where you gotta be lucky sometimes, but you need good players to buy in.
So when did you know that this group had what it took? You guys scored 13 runs per game on average. You gave up only less than 1 run per game, 0.89 ERA, which is just something that's hard to fathom over the course of a 25-game season. It's one thing if you're gonna, do that over the course of a 3 or 6 game stretch. So you guys had the talent. When did you know that this was a special group?
Well, I think that we had James Sill and Joe Uvino, two special players that were going to be at the forefront of our team. I think last year, at a midway point of last year, you got to remember we started 7 sophomores last year, and I think when you have such a young team with 7 sophomores, you never know what to expect. You think you're going to be okay, but you never know. But I would say mid-year last year, I felt like the coaching staff and myself felt like, if we can put a couple of pieces together and get a little better, I think we can make a run. And to make a run, get to the semifinals of Game 3 against Calhoun, I think Calhoun was a better team than we were last year in 2022. But I think that it showed our guys, good thing, sometimes a bad loss is the best thing that ever happened to you in your program. And I think our guys understood what it takes to get to the semifinals, be 1 game away from get to the finals. And I think they really found out, listen, if we could just do this a little. One of the things I said to them when the year ended, I said, we need to fill our uniforms out like Calhoun. We need to look like they look in the uniform. And if you do that, good things will happen. And that's the one thing we really emphasized and we really made an improvement on, was getting stronger. And that definitely was the reason why we were successful this year.
Yeah, and you guys had quite a combination, middle of the order. You and Joe Uvino. Overlooked him when I was mentioning Nick Roselli earlier. Joe won the Diamond Award the year before that. So can you talk about the friendly rivalry that you guys have had? Now another Diamond Award winner in the books.
Me and Joe have been playing together since I think 10, 11. He's always been catcher, I've always been the pitcher. And then obviously back to back in the batting order. Joe's a great kid. I mean, grew up with him basically. Great player, of course. Probably, to be honest, one of the best catchers I've ever seen in my life. And, it's always fun working with him in the offseason to be able to share constructive criticism to each other. And I think that was really special, what we had.
Yeah. What was it like having a backstop like that over the last couple of years? Not only a kid that provides that offensive punch, which, his numbers speak for themselves. I think he hit about 480 when he won the Diamond Award. But, you play at a field like Farmingdale in a county Long Island championship, and not having to worry about a bunch of wild pitches, and not having to worry about him handling a young pitching staff too, right?
Yeah, you listen. At the end of the day, if you don't have to coach a catcher, you're one step ahead of everyone else. And we actually pride ourselves on that. If I have to call pitches, and I know some coaches do, and that's their philosophy, which is great. Me personally, I don't like doing that because I think it takes me away from the overall flow of the game. And if I have to worry about calling certain pitches, certain counts, and I got to worry about calling a whole game, then I might be losing something else during the game that can hurt us. So when you have a guy like Joe Uvino, you just put him out there, put him in the lineup, and make sure that he's going to do his job, which you have 100% confidence in. And I think that's also, a trust factor, practicing every day, talking every day to the catchers. I think it's been over 10, 12 years since I've called pitches for
really?
In a game. Yeah, and I think that, when I stopped doing it, I was like, this is how I want to do it. This is how I want to do it, because you got to trust your players.
Yeah.
And I just think that in my approach and my philosophy is you got to let them call the game. but you got to let them call the game off of all the work you did in preseason. Because they have to know what you're looking for from our pitching staff, how we're trying to attack hitters, what we're trying to look for, what's our approach as a pitching staff, and then let them lead that philosophy.
And now you guys were led by high-end players, but it takes a whole army to have the season that you guys had. Who were some of the unheralded stars, would you say, on your team that contributed to that successful year?
I think Matt Bolton. Sometimes he's a little overshadowed, but in my opinion, Matt Bolton's one of the best players on Long Island.
Had the big walk-off hit in the championship.
I mean,
series, right?
he's a complete hitter. He's going to do great things in his career. Cody Brush came up big for us in the counties.
Great play in LIC.
Matt Marino stepped up. Christian Varela, Tyler Diaz, Keke De La Cruz, Isaiah Marino.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on about key factors. I think a lot of those guys, as we mentioned, played in 2022. Bad taste in our mouth after semis. We all wanted to win counties. Obviously, that's the main goal. We all kind of had that. We all wanted it.
Yeah,
you're
on the same page.
Yeah, so I think that helped us a lot.
And now, Coach, can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, on the whole, how the team gelled as well? Because I think that's a big aspect of it. You had the talent, but you have to have the team chemistry as well. So is that something that you saw along the way, that these guys are really all in and on the same page, rowing in the same direction?
To have a great team, you have to have great culture, and culture starts way before your first game. And if you don't have good culture before your season, and guys buying into each other and buying into whatever the coaching staff is trying to teach, then you're not going to be successful. I say this to the guys all the time, and James can back me up on this. If you have no leaders, then you're a bad team. If you have good leaders, then if the coaching staff has to lead, then your team is okay or maybe good. But you have to have players to lead, and you have to have multiple players. I never had a captain in my life, because I don't believe 3 or 4 guys can lead a team. You got to generate everybody to believe that they're a captain, and everyone has to believe that they're leaders, because you need to have minimum 20 guys to lead your team. If you have 20 guys that are leaders and 4 guys that don't really kind of buy in, those 4 guys are irrelevant. They don't mean anything. But if you have 4 guys that lead, but they're not respected by the other 20 guys, I don't care how good they are as players, you're never going to win on the field. So we're all about building great culture with everyone trying to be a leader. And we need to have everyone lead and everyone take part. And that's a daily grind. You got to work at that daily. And it works for us. We're big into culture. We're big into brotherhood. We wear these wristbands that says brotherhood on it, because everyone that plays for division, you're a brother, and we're all in this together. And every one of my coaches is a division guy. So we all buy into that, and we're all in it together. But you need the players to lead, and you need multiple players to be leaders.
Now, you guys made a run at a perfect season this year. I remember every time getting a message from you about the score of the game, I was like, wow, it seems like you got a shot to do this year. Now, it hasn't been that long. It was only Center Merchants 4 years ago, but it's still a very rare occurrence. So was that something that motivated you guys? And also, do you feel like when you did get that one loss that it kind of took a little bit of pressure off as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in baseball, I think it's borderline impossible to, be perfect. That's just the game. Definitely took a lot of pressure off. You were just like, all right,
let's play baseball.
Got that one out of the way. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Still got a goal to achieve,
Yeah. Did you think that was possible? You guys made a pretty good run at it.
Yeah, well, listen, we take it's an old cliche. You take one game at a time, one inning at a time. And then they build up, and then next thing you know, you look at the box scores, and you're like 20-0.
Yeah.
And our first loss was in the playoffs, 3-2 to Bethpage, and then our second loss was the Long Island Finals. So baseball is a unique sport, man. There's so many variables that can happen in a game where you can lose a game.
Yep.
The best team doesn't always win in baseball. I mean, we know that. And so when you have that winning streak, we got 20 wins, you're waiting for that hammer to drop on you, like the dark cloud to come over your head, and you lose a game that you shouldn't have lost. But the credit to these guys, especially James and the guys that are seniors, they really took one game at a time. They really took one game at a time, and it was weird this year because we had so many lopsided wins. Like we averaged 13 runs and only had 1. A lot of these, a lot of their stats are kind of like not accurate because they got taken out of games. because we were up by so much, and we wanted to get other guys a chance to play. So we were always nervous about that close game. The coaching staff, we were like, oh my God, when we have a close game,
it was a
how are we
3-2
going to
game.
respond? But what happened was our first close game was in the playoffs against, I think it was Bethpage the first time, and then it was Garden City in the semifinals, where it's like, all right, how are we going to respond now? And then in the finals, we had close games in Calhoun. How are we going to respond? And we were so flexible this year as a team that we could win close games.
Yeah.
And we could do the little things to win close games. And also, if our bats got hot and we had a good matchup, we can also win those games, 7, 8, 9 runs.
And I just wanted to touch on the Long Island Championship. So, you guys won the county championship. That's a tremendous feat, but lost the last game of the season. So looking back on it now, does it irk you a little bit? And also, how do you prepare for a team that you haven't faced before, like West Babylon? Granted, it's the same thing for them. They hadn't seen you. But are you able to gather any information on a team before LIC?
Yeah, well, listen. Hey, well, you would try to get you try to talk to coaches maybe that played them. You're friendly, if you're friends with coaches in Suffolk County, you kind of help them out when they're asking you questions about a Nassau County team, and they try to help you out. But I'm a big believer in worrying about us.
Yeah.
We got to worry about us, and we played good for 6.5 innings. And James pitched great for 6.5 innings, and listen, like I told you earlier. If I look at the box score, we won 2-1. It was 2 runs for us, 5 hits for us, and 4 errors for us. And West Babylon had 1 run, 5 hits, and no errors. And you told me we were going to win. I'd be like, that's crazy. But give credit to West Babylon. They grinded out. They played to their MO. Their MO was when they get down, they come back. In every playoff game I saw against them, especially against Bayport, they were down twice and they came back and won. They were down against us 2-1. 2-1 is not a big difference.
Yeah.
And they came back. So I give them a ton of credit. We made some mistakes, but you got to play 21 outs. So it was a great learning experience for me. There's certain things I would have done different a little bit. I'm not going to say on air what they were, and these guys know. And there's some things they would have done different, as players. So it's just that's baseball, man.
And James, what is that atmosphere like in that stadium? I was lucky enough to pitch at Farmingdale as a player, but in college. But I didn't get to experience 1,000 people in the stands, especially the fervor of Levittown baseball, where they're hanging on every pitch. It's intense. It's not like that in the Skyline Conference.
Yeah, I mean it was awesome. We talked about it all year. Coach Tuttle saying how we're gonna play in front of that big crowd one day. He told me when I was in 8th grade, you're gonna play in front of a big crowd one day. Happened. It was awesome. Some points of the game, I was like looking around. I was like, oh, I had to get back into this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, everybody was fired up. It seemed like a couple times I just took pictures because I was like blown away that this is a high school game on Long Island, and it was just an incredible atmosphere. So I just wanted to touch on your college commitment. So recently you announced your decision to attend Old Westbury. Can you tell our audience a little bit about why you chose this school and also why you chose to do it when you did, which was after the season?
During the season I was really trying to focus on playing for division. Once it was over, Coach Rod, Coach Pat welcomed me in with warm arms. I really like Old Westbury. The campus is close to home. Building a brand new field. I think they have pretty good history with getting guys to the next level, which is what I wanted. So.
Yeah. And Coach, can you just talk a little bit about what your role is in getting kids to the next level, because you've had a lot of success with that. Do you try to take a hands-on approach, or do you kind of sit back and just let the college coach reach out to you if necessary?
Well, I try to. I think now the landscape of recruiting has changed dramatically since when I was a player. The high school coach was really the dominant person in trying to get a kid seen by colleges. That's long gone now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of out of the high school coach's hands. So I play like an auxiliary role. I always tell these guys when we get to the senior year, give me 5 schools that you can, number one, attain academically. Because if you can't do the work academically, you're going to be home in January.
Yeah.
And number 2, you can see yourself playing there. Because the game has changed dramatically. The Division III player is really good now. When a Division III player, and when I was growing up, they were just okay.
Yeah.
The Division I level is really, really good, and the Division II level is just as good. So many guys getting drafted out of Division II as Division I. So what I try to guide them is pick a school you can do your grades academically, and then obviously pick a school where you can achieve athletically. Some kids get misguided. I have to be honest, and sometimes the travel organizations misguide these kids. Where, I have no dog in the fight, so I'm going to be honest with them. I'm going to say, listen, I don't think you can play there. I think you can play here. Now, they got to make that decision ultimately. I just try to guide them to make the right decision for them. So they're not leaving school in January. You know what I mean? I tell our guys, listen, go watch a Division III game. Go see yourself if you can play at that level. Go watch a Division II game.
Yeah.
Go watch a Division I game. And compare yourself to that guy that plays your position. Can you play at that level? Can you hit that pitching consistently? Can you pitch at that level? Can you throw? Can you hit the black at 87, 88? It's funny. I watch guys on these videos show that they're throwing 94, but they're throwing against a big net. What? What does that mean? But can you throw 94 on the black? Can you throw a changeup, and locate it? Can you throw a breaking ball for a strike? Can you be consistent with that over 5 or 6, 7 innings? So sometimes kids are misguided, but we just try to play as a high school coach. I try to play the role of, hey, let me guide you. Here's where I think you can fit.
Yeah, you've seen it. You don't want kids to come back in January and be back to square one, and now they're a year behind the 8 ball. So lastly, now we're in the middle of July. You've accomplished your goals. What are you looking to work on now as we head into the start of your college career?
Big for me is to continue with pitching still and hitting. But I really want to get my pitching velo up a little bit. Hopefully touching 90 a little bit more. That's a big goal for me. Hitting, just try to still be consistent, trying to hit the ball gap to gap.
Are you playing it all this summer?
Yeah, I'm playing for the HBL.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your guys' time. Congratulations on another successful season. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Axcess Baseball Podcast.